there's something deeply unsettling about human behavior. Despite our remarkable intelligence, we consistently undermine ourselves. We sabotage opportunities, feed irrational fears, and allow paralyzing doubt to dictate our lives. Why? What causes this fundamental disconnect? This question has haunted civilizations throughout history. For centuries, societies have grappled with this paradox of human cognition. Intelligent beings who seem almost programmed to work against their own interests. In our quest to understand this fundamental contradiction, we find ourselves drawn back to ancient teachings that address this very question. These writings contain something that struck as both radical and deeply intuitive. At the core of this ancient wisdom lies the principle of mentalism, which proposes something profound. Reality itself is fundamentally a mental construct, shaped by the observer's mind. The implications weren't immediately clear, but deeper examination of these 2,000-year-old teachings reveals they weren't just abstract philosophy. The Hermetic texts diagnose the very roots of weak thinking that plague us today. They provide actionable strategies to transform mental fragility into deliberate mastery. What if the mental lens through which you view life isn't just influencing your perception? What if it's actively creating your reality? We need to examine this ancient principle not as esoteric wisdom, but as a practical framework that might explain why some people thrive while others remain trapped in cycles of limitation and fear. Mental weakness doesn't always look dramatic. It often appears as hesitation, overthinking, or being too easily influenced by others. A person can seem functional on the surface, but still lack any real sense of internal direction or control. Psychology today labels these patterns in various ways: cognitive biases, low self-efficacy, or weak-mindedness. These are all ways of describing a mind that struggles to regulate itself under pressure or uncertainty. Ancient Hermetic philosophy explained the same thing in different terms. It saw this kind of thinking not as random or purely emotional, but as a failure to align with universal mental laws. According to Hermeticism, the mind isn't just a passive receiver of experience, it's the starting point. When that starting point is unstable, the rest follows. A 2024 study published in Frontiers in Psychology found that 68% of adults regularly engage in negative self-talk. This kind of repetitive inner criticism reflects what Hermetic texts described centuries ago as a form of subconscious resistance, turning away from reason, clarity, and inner order. In both cases, the result is the same. A person becomes reactive instead of intentional. They don't act based on principle. They respond based on emotion, habit, or fear. This isn't an abstract problem. It affects how people make decisions, how they see themselves, and how they handle setbacks. The real question is, can this be reversed? Hermetic philosophy suggests that mental weakness comes from a specific source, the belief that we are separate from what it calls the All, a universal mind or source of all thought and existence. This isn't meant as a spiritual metaphor. In Hermetic texts, separation from the All is seen as a practical problem. When people forget that their thoughts are part of a larger system, their thinking becomes inconsistent and fragile. The Corpus Hermeticum doesn't offer surface-level solutions. Instead, it argues that stability and strength come from recognizing that your mind operates within a shared, universal mental field. This is a clear contrast with modern psychology and self-help methods, which often treat the mind like a machine, something to fix, improve, or optimize. Hermeticism treats the mind as part of a larger system. It doesn't focus on controlling thoughts through force, but on understanding how thinking fits into the structure of reality. From this perspective, what we call mental weakness comes from a failure to grasp how the mind actually works. But this view conflicts with a common assumption in modern culture, that life happens to us and thought is just something that follows. When people believe that, they overlook the role their thinking plays in shaping what they experience. The result is confusion, frustration, and a feeling of being constantly out of control. Therefore, it claims that matter and energy are not independent forces, but lower frequency expressions of thought. Think of a filmmaker planning a scene. Nothing has been recorded yet, but the entire sequence already exists in their mind. Now imagine trying to shoot that same scene without a clear vision beforehand. It would be chaotic and all over the place. Many people experience life in that same state, responding to what's in front of them without realizing they're participating in its creation. In the same way, many people move through life without a clear mental framework. They react to situations as they come, without recognizing the influence their own expectations and assumptions have on what happens next. This principle applies constantly. When someone expects failure, their attention narrows, their decisions become cautious, their body language changes. These micro-adjustments alter outcomes, creating a loop that feels external, but started internally. Understanding this principle isn't just about abstract awareness, it becomes a necessary step toward regaining agency. If thought drives experience, then leaving that process unexamined is not neutral, it's self-sabotage. If mental fragility stems from disconnection and unawareness, then reversing it requires deliberate mental discipline. According to Hermeticism, it requires a shift in how thought is examined and directed. The tradition offers clear strategies for strengthening focus, awareness, and internal control. These methods are designed to help the mind regain structure and break patterns that keep people reactive and stuck. Hermes Trismegistus, closely associated with the Egyptian god Thoth, is described as a figure of knowledge and inner examination. One of the key methods attributed to him is daily self-questioning. The goal is to identify automatic thought patterns that are accepted without reflection. For example, a person might carry beliefs like, "I'm not creative," or "I'm bad at math." These statements are often repeated without being evaluated, but when left unchallenged, they shape decisions and behavior in ways the individual may not even notice. Hermeticism emphasizes that a single false belief, if left unchecked, can alter someone's entire trajectory, like a lens with a crack that distorts everything seen through it. A study had participants track and reframe 3 automatic thoughts per day using a journaling app. After 6 weeks, those participants showed a 40% improvement in measured grit, indicating better persistence and self-regulation. This method focuses on identifying thought patterns that interfere with clear thinking. By making these patterns visible, it becomes easier to change how decisions are made and how situations are handled. Reframing individual thoughts helps interrupt unproductive patterns. Polarity training builds on this by treating mental states like strength and weakness as points along a continuum. They're positions that can shift with deliberate effort. But most people treat their emotions as absolute. If they feel overwhelmed, they assume they're incapable. If they hesitate, they assume they lack confidence. The response becomes passive. They withdraw instead of adjusting. Polarity training challenges that response. Instead of trying to eliminate discomfort, it teaches a shift in position. For example, instead of thinking, "I can't handle this," the person reframes it as, "This challenges my current capacity." The situation stays the same, but the mental frame now creates space for engagement rather than avoidance. Research on neuroplasticity shows that small, consistent changes in how situations are mentally framed increase activity in the brain's prefrontal cortex. People who practice this kind of mental redirection improve long-term self-control, planning, and emotional regulation. The key is direction, not perfection. Mental strength doesn't come from never feeling stress or doubt. It comes from learning how to shift when it happens, and repeating that shift often enough for it to become automatic. If you understand the ideas behind self-questioning and polarity training, but don't know where to start, then this tool is for you. I made a simple prompt you can use to figure out what thoughts are holding you back. It walks you through the process step by step, using the principle of mentalism we covered. It's just a practical way to take what we've talked about and actually apply it. To use it, just copy the prompt from the description below and paste it into your AI tool of choice. Answer the questions honestly. It will challenge your assumptions, help you analyze your current situation, and give you a clear, structured path forward. If you try it, let me know in the comments how it worked for you. Thought is not a reaction to reality. It plays an active role in shaping it. Weak thinking reflects a failure to understand how thought operates in daily life. But most people are trained to focus on outcomes rather than the thought patterns that drive them. When results don't improve, the response is usually more effort, not better thinking. Therefore, the same behaviors repeat under different conditions and frustration builds. The Hermetic approach challenges that cycle. It treats each thought as a choice with structural consequences. Over time, those choices either support progress or create limitations that feel external but are actually internal. This framework becomes more relevant as digital distractions and reactive thinking become standard. Attention is shaped by outside forces, and many people don't notice how much of their mental space is driven by patterns they never chose. Emerging research in physics and neuroscience points towards similar conclusions. Perception affects how people experience the world, and attention plays a role in determining which possibilities become real. These ancient practices are gaining new relevance as tools for building mental stability and long-term direction. The takeaway is practical. If thinking shapes experience, then learning to manage it is necessary, not optional. Before labeling a situation as fixed, ask yourself, what am I thinking that's keeping me stuck? Identify the belief behind it. Challenge if it's true, useful, or just a habit. Changing outcomes starts with changing how thoughts take shape, and that begins with what you choose to think next.